Hello. In the Crown of Aragon 639 years ago, it was March 15th, 1387. My name is Jonathan Seyfried. I'm a PhD candidate in history at the University of New Mexico, and this is the Historian's Notebook, a podcast about how history gets made. Season 1 is titled Molt Cara Companiona. We're looking at a document from each day of the first year of the reign of King Joan I of Aragon and Queen Violante de Bar. Let's begin today's document. Today's document, well, it's actually a pair of letters that Joan has composed in order to do some law enforcement in Valencia. So the people who are mentioned in this letter, in both these letters on the first line of each letter, are the Portaveus de Governador of the Kingdom of Valencia. The role of a Portaveus de Governador is not clear to me, but it's some kind of official that is connected to the office of the governor, some kind of law enforcement person, I guess, because what's described in both of these letters is a pursuit of criminals. So in the second line of the first letter, at the very end, it says de molts et diverses crimes. So then also in the second line of the second letter, we have at the end de diverses et enormes crimes. So this is basically saying there's a lot of crimes, like very diverse and enormous. And it's pretty clear to me, after tangling with this for a while, that these are financial crimes. And I have two reasons for that. First of all, in the second letter, we have a name in the fifth line, Julia Garius, or Julia Garius. Julia Garius is somebody that is with Joan for his entire reign, might have actually been working for him before. I'm not sure where he was before the start of the reign of Joan and Violante, but he is with them the whole time in the treasury. And he is actually named as one of the principal malfeasance in the aftermath of Joan's death in 1396, when Maria de Luna opens up a criminal investigation into Joan's advisors. And I mean, in fact, it's also Violante's advisors too. So one of the people that we've seen a lot of in the documents in the podcast for Violante is Bartolomeo Sirvent. And I was just looking at something the other day, and the criminal investigation against Joan's advisors after his death in 1396 came up, and I was looking at that and I was like, oh my gosh, Bartolomeo Sirvent is in there. And so a lot of the people who were in this role as scribes were also, I think, seen as having some power and being influential enough so that when, after the death of Joan, people are looking for someone to punish for financial misdeeds or bad policy, they include people like Bartolomeo Sirvent. They also include the people who were in charge of the finances. And in 1396 that is identified as Julia Garius. So there are, and Esperandu Cardona is another one of them, but Julia Garius is one that gets a lot of blame for financial misdeeds having to do with how he managed the treasury in especially the last couple years of Joan's reign. But here we are at the very beginning of Joan's reign, and now Julia Garius is part of trying to apprehend the criminals who have done some kind of financial crime. And the way that this is phrased in the letters here, these two letters, is that they have done something to Nostra Fisc. And when I say that aloud, you're probably thinking, oh, FISC, as in fiscal, and that then connects to financial things. But guess what? In these documents, the scribe, Père de Bassant, has decided to spell it PHISCH, so that I initially thought we were talking about something physical, like when I saw the phrase, that it was something that had been against de notre fisc. I thought it was more like physique. And so I went down this whole thing of like, oh my gosh, is like Joan pursuing somebody who injured him bodily? But nope, no. It is fiscal. And so the reason that I'm feeling pretty sure about that is because the PH was interchangeable with the F in a lot of the scribal record. And then also Julia Garius is well known as someone who was involved in the management of finances for the royal family during the reign of Joan and Violante. So why are there two letters? Yeah, that's a toughie, actually, because, if you're looking at the way that these are starting out, they're really similar. So one of them starts out, Sapiats quel Portaveus de Governador. The other one starts out, Ya sabets con lo Portaveus de Governador. So basically, there's some kind of plural you being addressed here, like maybe a group of officials, but I looked around on the folio and I couldn't exactly find out from what's later on the folio and then also what came before on the previous folio, a determination about exactly who this is being sent to. I think we can pretty much infer that officials in Valencia are going to be the ones that are receiving this. All of this pretty much boils down to, hey, you've got some financial criminals running around there in Valencia, and you should apprehend them and also get them to explain what they have done. So it seems to me like the key phrases, the key verb is anotar. So anotar shows up in the first letter in line 5. And I'm actually, when I'm giving these line numbers, I'm not counting low recs at the beginning. So sorry about that if that's caused confusion. But yeah, usually I start the line numbering when I'm just talking about it like this from the first full line. Although technically I should not be doing that. So maybe I'll stop. Oh gosh. Anyway, so we've got in line 5 this phrase before that it comes before the fisc, right? And it says que en anotar lo, and then a word that is really hard to figure out because it's abbreviated. And also, this particular scribe is not conventional when he's using the abbreviations with the letter P. Like sometimes his abbreviation for PER is something that would look from other scribes like a PRO. But I'm pretty sure this is a pro abbreviation, PRO. And then it looks like we've got something like a CI and then an N and then the abbreviation mark above, which could be any number of letters. So gosh, I'll probably figure this out later and like kick myself and resist the temptation to come back into the recording and like insert into the audio recording what this word actually is. But it's something. I mean, it's something like to annotate, to list, to expose the particulars of what happened to the fisc, to the finances, and that's the nature of the diverse and enormous crimes. So it seems to me that Joan is telling the officials to do what they probably are already incentivized to do, which is to apprehend these financial criminals. But I think this anotar, which is also in the fourth line of the second document, I think that is important here. I think Joan is looking for some kind of itemization of what the crimes were. It's perhaps an effort to understand something financial, which is something I'd be interested to know if Joan had that desire to understand financial records. I have seen nothing to suggest that he had any interest in that at all. And in fact, I've seen a lot to suggest that he was quite indifferent to the details of financial management. But if we're seeing a break in that pattern with this particular set of documents, that would be interesting. All right, still trying to hone in on the question of why there are two documents. And well, one of them includes the name of Julia Garius, the second one, and the first one does not. So one set of recipients is meeting up, connecting to Julia Garius, and then the other set of recipients is maybe outside of that loop, and they're maybe, I don't know, more like on the ground, and then they're going to turn over the criminals once they find them to the higher ups that are the recipients of the second document. I don't know. That just seems so out on a limb as I'm saying that. And something that has to do with the way that these letters start, where one of them is sapiats kel, and the other starts with ya sabets kon. You know with. Gosh. I am doing a intensive seminar in medieval Catalan in August. And this is exactly the kind of thing that I am going to ask. Like, what is happening with these phrases? How is their meaning different? Because to me, they sort of amount to the same thing. It's basically just communicating, that the Portaveus de Governador is carrying out this investigation. So I will have to put a pin in this until, I guess, August. But I feel like something about the Catalan grammar might be a clue to who the different intended recipients are for these two letters and why one of them includes Julia Garius in its content and then the other one does not. And otherwise, they are just pretty similar letters. Okay, so thank you for listening to this episode of The Historian's Notebook, Season 1, Molt Cara Compagnona. If you are leaving with more questions than you arrived with, and you're just really burning to know about that answer about medieval Catalan and sapiats versus sabets, well, I have done my job. Because remember, the motto of the Historian's Notebook is dissatisfaction guaranteed. But who knows, if you check back and look at the webpage for this particular document in August, maybe I will have updated it with some additional knowledge, and you'll at least have some satisfaction about that question on medieval Catalan. So visit the website to see an image of today's document and additional show notes. And listen again tomorrow to hear about the next day in the first year of the reign of King Joan I of Aragon and Queen Violante de Bar. In the meantime, take care.